Hi, it's Chip from Enuff Z'Nuff, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast right here, right now.
1, 2, 3, 4. The Brutally Delicious podcast. The Brutally Delicious podcast. The Brutally Delicious podcast. The Brutally Delicious podcast.
Hey, how are you, my friend?
How are you, buddy?
Good. I don't know if you remember, you did a documentary with me a number of years back.
Yeah, I do remember you. I don't forget a good-looking face.
How are you doing these days?
I can't complain. Exciting times. If you had told me 30 years ago I'd be putting out my 20th studio record, and I'd be touring around the United States of America and Europe nonstop, I'd say that you're stretching the truth.
Right.
Just being kind. But hey, it's been certainly been a nice little chasing of the carrot all these years. And when it comes to the work ethic of Enuff Z'Nuff in the songs, I'm definitely more than happy with the rate of material that we've put out throughout the years, and grateful I get a chance to make records and meet all the killer fans around the country.
So you mentioned it. Let's just jump in then. Was this 21st record? How in the hell do you first of all, how in the hell do you put out that many records and not repeat yourself? Because you still got to stay true to the Enuff Z'Nuff genre, sound, whatever, but you don't want to rewrite the same record. You don't want to write Fly High Michelle over and over again, right?
No, I wouldn't mind that success over and over again. That's for sure.
Right.
But I look at my constituents and the cats that I grew up listening to. The Beatles and the Stones and Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Queen, and they all had their own timbre and their own sound. And it was perplexing to me when I was younger how they can come up with so much material and all. It differs, but there was a lot of similarities as you get older and you realize and you dissect the songs a little bit, and you see, look at the bands that came out during while we were out there, from Guns N' Roses and Cheap Trick, and bands like Jellyfish. They all had their own thing to it, where it was really a special set of rules and regulations that they put upon themselves. And I'm sure they crossed paths plenty of time. They've all been influenced by something. And for me, all those bands had big lending of inspiration to me throughout the years. And this is some of the Enuff Z'Nuff stuff, or even the later stuff that I've done as I've fronted the band for the last 12 or so many years. You're going to hear some stuff and you go, I remember that from another thing, but I'd like to believe that I try to make every single record a little bit different than the last one. And maybe it's a challenge, but I'm not even thinking about that when I'm making the songs. When I'm writing these songs, first of all, it's a blessing from above. Every single song I've had has something to do with, whether it's the old stuff I did with Donnie or the stuff I'm doing now. And it all comes from somewhere. And I listen to these new records that I have. My goal right now is just to find songs that seem to fit the mold of what I'm trying to put across right now, which is nice melody lines, good songs with a nice storyline, of course. And some of it I like to have where it's a little bit aggressive, where it's not just a pop song. It's maybe a little rock, or maybe it's got a tinge of heavy metal or alternative to it. And that's how I look at things nowadays. It's all an experiment at the end of the day. I'm grateful I get a chance to make records, period.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. So, I mean, you've got to be grateful for sure, but how have you managed to avoid the traps and the problems that so many of your contemporaries had, right? Because a lot of them are playing when they shouldn't be playing and should have cashed in a long time ago or whatever. But you're still putting out really relevant, really good, right? They're not like a caricature of themselves. Does that make sense?
Well, it's very kind of you, and I much appreciate that. It's just at the end of the day, I look at all the material that we've written, and we've had some real nice success, and I'm grateful for that. And I've mentioned it in almost every interview, and I've heard Robert Plant and all my favorite rock stars mention it, that where the average life expectancy of any band is a few years.
Right.
To still be going after all these years is really a miracle and a blessing from above. And there's a lot of inspiration out there. When you look out in the world, people go, where do the songs come from? Well, there's a lot of fodder out there. Look at what's happening in the world. And what's happening in your own life as well. So there's a lot to grab onto and a lot to inspire. And that's what I look for every single day, is trying to find that one little needle in the haystack.
Okay, fair enough. So, I mean, obviously, we never imagined you'd be here this many years later, right? What's that like? Was there an out game, or did you just imagine?
The out game is when if there's any health problems or, God forbid, something that would, stop the trajectory of what our focus is, which is putting out records and going out and touring all the time. There's no end game for me. I got to be honest with you. I said it years ago. You've listened to old interviews I've done, bro, where I've talked about never stopping until it's over. When it's over and the good Lord speaks, I guess that's it. We move forward. But the songs are out there, and there's a great illustrious history there. And we're working on a documentary right now, what I think is going to be incendiary. We're exposing all the warts, scars, and tattoos of what we're all about. And that's one of the beauties of Enuff Z'Nuff, not just the songs that we've had and the little bit of commercial success we've achieved, but the history and the people that were around the band from the early days, Doc McGee and Bob Brigham managing the band in the early days, and then going over and having the great Herbie Herbert from Journey take over the band and help guide us for a good 10 years.
It should have been massive.
I agree.
Everything was there. You should have been massive. I don't know what the hell happened.
Well, we stubbed our toe along the way. We shot our foot off, as Herbie would say, a few times and crippled ourselves with our questionable behavior. All the guys were good guys. Nobody was a bad soul in the band. And we just had a few things. We dabbled in some of the black magic that's out there, which is drugs. That caught up to us. That's one of the prerequisites to great songs as well. And, some business dealings that we've had, too, that might have been considered a shortcut to thinking. We made these records, and we had good shots in those early days with Atco Atlantic and Derek Showman. Plenty of fodder and chippy poos to put behind the band. We had a great agency with Barbara Skydell and Frank Barcelona and Locke Buchanan over a premiere. We made some really good deals and some great inroads, and we had some good tours too. And then we stubbed our toe along the way with the change of the guard in the music business. That was the biggest thing when Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, all those bands came out there, and good bands.
Kind of the documentary years ago. That's where it kind of crushed it.
Yeah, it hurt a lot of bands, not just us. Everybody everybody had to take a back seat at that time. And we were strong enough and resilient enough to continue to go out and tour and find little places. We hit clubs and we hit theaters and we play everywhere. But at that time we were an arena rock band playing small places. And we've hurt ourselves because we wanted to work. We wanted to play and take the music to the people. And at that time too, there was moments where the inmates were running the asylum, and I think that might have been something where we confuse motion with progress.
Got a lot of good guests on this record. I'm assuming a lot of them from the past, but how did you get a hold of Steven Adler and Steve Stevens and Gunnar Nelson and all these guys?
Oh, it's easy to do, bro. First of all, I lived with Adler for 7 or 8 years in Studio City with him and his lovely wife and their 4 doggies. Oh, really? Yeah, because I played bass while I was in Enuff Z'Nuff. I also played bass in Steven's band, Adler's Appetite.
Oh wow!
So we toured all around South America and through Europe, and we did a lot of stuff in the United States. And Alex Grassi from Quiet Riot was the other guitar player. Michael Thomas, formerly a Faster Pussycat, was in the band as well as Steven and myself. And we had Patrick Stone, actually, as a singer at one time, who was in Butterside, and he also plays. He was in a band called Sweet. Now he's out with Hairball. So we had a really fine-tuned, well-oiled machine. We toured around the country, and I was able to really develop a great friendship with Steven. So when he, at one time, at 2010, 2011, he came to Chicago to clean his act up a little bit. And I thought he was doing good in the band when I was with him. When he wasn't doing heroin or anything like that, he cleaned himself up really well, and he looked good. He was playing good too. But then he found himself slipping a little bit, so he came to Blue Island, Illinois, to stay with me, and I produced records out of my house here in Blue Island. And I had a ton of bands that were coming over here and making records while I was off tour. Right. And I like to help out the guys. Instead of going into a regular studio and spend $1,000 a day and come over here for peanuts, and you get me to not only produce the record, but I can play on your stuff, sing on your material, whatever I can do, help you write the songs. So I was helping a lot of the younger bands that were out there just getting a foothold on themselves and giving them a chance. And Steven would get on the drums every day to check the drums for me, and I have my engineer just recording them. So I got a plethora of material of just Steven playing killer, iconic beats like he did back in the old days of Guns N' Roses.
Right.
So, and this business is predicated, as I've said a million times, on friendships and relationships. So from there, I just took, I would take those beats on those songs that Steven would lay down. I'd go into Pro Tools to make sure they're all gridded up, and I'd write songs around them.
Yeah.
And it was, nobody swings like that cat, because he grew up listening to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and he loved Queen and Led Zeppelin. He had great influences. He loved Roger Meadows Taylor beyond belief. And so I was able to go in there and find inspiration in just his drum playing. It was just incredible. And then the other guy, Steve Stevens, I go back with him years and years back when he lived in New York. I played on some demos for him, helped him out in a couple things. He was kind enough to ask me to play bass on a few things. And from there, we developed a great friendship. He's come out and sitting with the band when we play shows in Chicago, or we were in Japan, he'd be on tour. We'd call him up for the encore to play with us. And it just so happens he reached out to me on Instagram a couple months ago and said, "Hey, Chip, I've been listening to Little Steven's Garage Radio." Our buddy Little Steven Van Zant's got his own radio station on Sirius XM. Right. He's also got his own record company. And I'm surprised he never reached out to me for a deal. I got to be honest with you. Although we're happy where we're at right now at Cleopatra. But I remember reaching back out to Steven, going, "Oh, man, thanks for listening to this stuff." He goes, "Yeah, love to play on some stuff if you got me material." And I sent him a couple songs, and lo and behold, he came up with not only great guitar parts, beautiful rhythms, and such tasty lead guitar parts, but he had great arrangements too. And I listened to everything he had to say to me. I respect him beyond belief. I've always loved him like a brother. And I thought this will be a nice feather in the cap, having Steven finally on an Enuff Z'Nuff album. Yeah. He's singing and playing the guitar in a song called Magnificent. I say singing because he sings on the guitar. And the other cats that I got on the record, that was just by default. Like, I was lucky. As I said, those friendships, you develop them, and in the music business, they don't last for a long time. But for me, I've been very blessed. And I was able to get Steve from Trickster, Def Leppard. Steve Brown's always been a solid singer, songwriter. He brought me a great song I thought was absolutely terrific. I did my thing to it. And then there's a couple other songs and players on there. I was really excited about finding an old demo tape from back in the 1990s, where I was producing a record in Chicago by a band called the Cyclops Blues Band, which was Greg Rico from Sly and the Family Stone, Prairie Prince from the Tubes, Ross Valerie and Neil Sean from Journey, and a bunch of illustrious cats that were on. I was co-producing the record with a guy named Dave Denny. And I was lucky enough, I should say, to develop a great friendship with Neil. And, when he came to Chicago, we had studio time at Chicago Recording Company, the old studio that's no longer there. Just an illustrious history. Everybody's recorded their Led Zeppelin, Queen, all the great bands from the past. And then, of course, the bands like Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Wilco and Cheap Trick. And he came down and played, and we had a song. We had just a groove and an idea, and we lay it down. It was live in the studio. No bands do it like that anymore, bro. It's it's all Pro Tool to Death Records, everything gridded out and fixed up perfectly. We went in there with no click track or anything and laid down this killer groove. with Neil playing guitar from Journey, myself playing bass, Donnie V, former singer of Enuff Z'Nuff, playing piano, not singing at all. And we laid the track down and we listened to it, and then we said, maybe this could be something cool for later on, and we just moved on. And those tapes, those 2-inch tapes, sat in my vault for 30 years. And so when I was making this record, I was just pulling out stuff to listen to it, and that came up, and it was pretty exciting. And I go, what can I do to bring this song to fruition? Right. And lo and behold, I'm good friends with Robert Fleischman, who wrote Wheel in the Sky and Anytime and a bunch of Journey songs back in the days before Steve Perry. And he also sang in a band called Vinnie Vincent Invasion.
Oh, yeah.
And I called him on the phone. He was just finishing his record. He's got a new record out called Emotional Atlas, and it's fabulous. Real EDM kind of a record, a lot different from the stuff he's put out in the past. Real melodic, and he asked me to play bass on that record. As a matter of fact, it was the only really real instrument that he had on there besides his pipes. Everything else is all Moog synthesizers, etc.
Right.
And he goes, yeah, send me the track. And I sent it to him, and 15 minutes later, he goes, I got a great idea. And he hummed me and sang me the verses to the song, which is called Shine. And it was fabulous. I go, God, you write faster than we do. And I go, can I get you down here in Chicago to record on this? This could be something. You and Neil recording a song, and you guys haven't done anything in 40 years. He goes, Chip, I'd love to do it. So he came down to the studio, laid it down in a couple hours. Really, it was like only a couple of takes on vocals. It wasn't like okay, let's punch in this line, let's fix this. It was the same approach that we took recording this song 35 years ago today. And it was just terrific. And I go, yeah, I got to put it on the record. I said, I got to put this song on the record somehow. But my ego was telling me, well, Chip, you're the singer in Enuff Z'Nuff. You should be singing all the songs. And I said, nope, I'm going to put this out there. I think it's a real special treat for the fans. And more importantly, for us in the band, Enuff Z'Nuff, to have a track with the Cats from Journey and Vinnie Vincent Invasion. Yeah. And while playing with Enuff Z'Nuff. And I'm real proud of it. I put it as the last song on the record, and I did sing along with Robert. Did a small little 2-part harmony on the song, but what you're hearing mostly is his beautiful pipes on there, and boy, he nailed it.
I agree. So what are your touring plans? Are you planning on touring on this?
Well, I just came back from a tour, bro. I've been on the road. My pipes are kind of shot right now. I sang 16 songs in 19 days. Our agency, Artists Worldwide, it's like a zoo over there. Those cats just throw us out there, and there's no days off because my agent management company know that if we're off for a day or two, we lose money. Yeah. And it's not like we're playing sheds and arenas anymore where we're making a Brinks truck full of money. So it's just challenging where we're traveling around the country. There's a lot of costs, hotel rooms, fuel, etc.
Oh yeah.
And so we did this run. We finished it up in Milwaukee. We did a Summerfest on July 3rd. Had a couple days off to get back on the horse again, and I leave now tomorrow, and I'm out with a band called Pretty Tied Up, which is an all-star band that's going out and doing nothing but Appetite for Destruction in its entirety.
Oh, nice.
I'm back with my old buddy Alex Kane from Life, Sex, and Death. He'll be playing guitar on that, along with some cat from America. He won American Idol in Brazil. He goes by the name of L.A. Him and a guy named Brandon Fields. And we're going to be touring around. I think the cat from Skid Row, Rob, is going to be playing drums on some of the stuff too. So I'm looking forward to going out and playing those songs, and I'll be out for a month with that project. Then I come back and I go back out with Enuff Z'Nuff. We'll put a new video out for the Xtra Cherries record. His next song is going to be No Cold Feeling, which is written by Steve Brown and myself. And then I've got a bunch of festival dates that are coming up, so it should be good for us.
Nice. So that was the last question I had, was that single and that video for Heavy Metal. I really dig, and I dig that whole 70s sort of vibe you got going on with it, which I think you've had, on and off throughout your career, right? I love that.
Thanks. A lot of stuff on this record. It's a brand new record for everybody out there, but for me, some of those songs are quite old, Dave, but they've aged well, and Heavy Metal's no exception. I wrote that one back in 2017, 2018. I was going to be on our record called Diamond Boy, and for some reason, we pushed it back there. My old guitar player, Tony Fennell, who used to play with Ultravox, he took Mid-Year's place years ago. He said to me, he goes, hang on to this one, mate. We got enough good songs on the record. We'll save it for the next one. And then lo and behold, we did the next record was Brainwashed Generation. And it's just, we had so many songs. I was really full of piss and vinegar. Then I was writing a Brinks truck full of material, and I was recording with a bunch of different bands. I was doing stuff with Dave Elfson. I did stuff with Zen from Mars and the guys in the Choir Boys. I was really busy, but I was very creative at that time. At least I thought I was. And I started laying down all these songs, and I developed a great friendship with Dax Nielsen from Cheap Trick. And I said, I'd love you to play drums on some of this stuff, and my guy can't do them. And he says, yeah, absolutely. I'll play in every single song. I hail you guys. And so I started just recording a bunch of songs. And I think I put out like 3 records in 1 year, which was my Perfectly Imperfect solo record, which I had some good guests on there like Joe Hoekstra and Dax Nielsen. Yeah. And then I put out Finer Than Sin, which is it was on Frontiers. And that was, I think, a great record. And we toured on that extensively, too. I went out and did 100-something dates. And then, of course, I did a bunch of solo stuff outside of that, too. But in 1 year, I put out, it was at least 3 records. Oh, I put that Beatle record out, too, which is called Hard Rock Night. My time trajectory might be questionable, but I know that we put out 6 records in like 4 years. That's a lot of work. And I said to myself, I heard McCartney in an interview saying, I'm not going to overwork myself and just throw all those songs out there just for the sake of record companies and Spotify taking advantage of it. I want it to be quality material. I want the songs to be strong. And maybe going back to the beginning of your interview, saying how we don't repeat ourselves, perhaps that's one of the reasons that we don't, because I refuse to put out anything that I don't think is quite stellar in my eyes. If it's something that passed the test with me, then I'll share it with the rest of the fans out there. I just don't want on our legacy of Enuff Z'Nuff and even my solo stuff. I just would like to put out quality records, and I want to play in the studio, and I want to play together, and I want drums and bass and guitars and keyboards. I'd like being in the same room with a lot of the cats. And some of those records were done where I passed things around, and it can work out that way as well. But boy, there's nothing like being in a room with a bunch of cats making magic.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, I want to switch gears just for a second. What did you think of the Back to the Beginning this weekend? Did you watch it?
Oh, are you kidding me? I was at, it's a quick little story in 93, I think it was. We were at A&M Studios in Los Angeles, and we were recording a record, Animals of Human Intelligence, and tons of rock stars and musicians and people outside of the business would come by and visit us while we were making this record it was with Arista Records and Clive Davis. Yeah. I remember sitting in the room with Stan Lynch from Tom Petty's band and just dissecting his songs. He just loved our band. It was really inspirational for us because it was during that whole change of the guard in the music business with, like as I mentioned earlier, with Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Nirvana. And a lot of bands were rooting for it. We were the underdog at that time. A lot of people were rooting for us. And across the hall, Ozzy was in there in his studio, and he had a sign on the door that said, "Absolutely no fucking admittance." And we said, that's kind of funny. So then Donnie and I put a sign together that said, "Absolutely no admittance except if you have the following: coke, crack, heroin, pot, alcohol, Vicodin, Valium, all the different drugs we have." It was a whole list. And then one of the guys came by the studio and said, "Chip, can we borrow your bass? We're doing overdubs, and Mike Inez wants to play your 12-string bass that you got from Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick."
Right.
And I gave him my bass guitar, and I didn't see it for a week or so, and I was wondering, and I didn't need it because we were tracking. I had my 4-string old precision bass with me, but I was wondering when I'm going to get that bass back. It's been over a week, and I asked one of the girls at the desk at the A&M Studios, if you see Ozzy come out and go outside, please just text me or send me a message in my phone, and I can I'll run outside. I won't tell the rest of my band so they can't get a chance to wreck that chance of shaking hands, and I don't want to frighten Ozzy and scare him.
Right.
And lo and behold, they called me a couple of days later, said, "Yeah, Ozzy's outside right now." So I ran outside quietly, didn't tell the guys what I was doing. And there he is, just standing out on the steps out there. I go, "Hey, Oz, how you doing?" He goes, "Hello, mate." And I said, he goes, "Yeah, you have any fags?" And I had these red Dunhill cigarettes. I used to break the filter off of them.
Right.
And I go, here, you like these Dunhills? They're English. And he's like, I don't think they're English. Maybe they're not, but I thought they were. And he smoked them. And I said, "Oh, I see you're walking kind of funny." And he goes, "You try doing a gram of cocaine and drinking a quart of Jack Daniels and see how you fucking walk." And I go, "Oh, pardon me. I didn't want to be disrespectful." He goes, No, it's okay. And he goes, "Let me have another cigarette." He was like taking 3 puffs off and throwing the cigarettes out. And I didn't care how he gave him the whole pack if he wanted.
Ozzy. Hey.
And then I said, "Ozzy," I really, I love the stuff that you've done solo. Of course, we all love the Black Sabbath stuff. I go, but I mean, I've seen that you've acquired a Brinks truck of tattoos on you. And I go, I must be a big pussy because I don't have one tattoo on me. He says, "You want to be original? Don't get a fucking tattoo." And I thought that's kind of good. I felt good. He made me feel comfortable there.
Yeah.
And Tommy Lee came by too, and Tommy Lee was hanging out in the studio too, who at one time was a big Enuff Z'Nuff fan, believe it or not. And I thought, this is kind of great, Dad. These guys are all hanging out in the studio, supporting each other. And I smoked another 3 cigarettes with Ozzy. For 20 minutes, the guy smoked almost half a pick of cigarettes with me.
Yeah.
And it was just charming beyond belief. He really was a really nice guy. He loved the Beatles beyond belief too. And he knew a lot about Enuff Z'Nuff's history as far as Beatles goes, because we've always loved that kind of stuff. And he went back to the studio, and the following day I got my 12-string bass back. And I didn't even mention it to him during our conversation.
Right.
And on the back of it, it said, a bunch of tape was on the back of it, and it was written in there, "Fuck those commie pigs." And it was Zakk Wylde that wrote on the back of the bass because they had some peace signs on there. And I thought that was kind of interesting, seeing as I beat him in arm wrestling 2 out of 3 in Nashville back in the 90s, but maybe he's still holding a grudge. I love him dearly, by the way. I love him in Pantera too, my old label mates. But yeah. Ozzy was the kind of guy that when you meet him in person, genuinely kind and loving beyond belief. And if you were in the business at all, he respected that because he knows what a cesspool it is to make a record and to continue to have the trajectory of chasing that carrot at the end of the day. I have nothing but respect for him. So when I watched that big special with Black Sabbath and seen all the bands that came in there and paid respect to him, that was very touching. And one of the highlights for me was watching the old Youngblood. It's fantastic. Dom is a great singer. He commanded the crowd.
I had never heard of Youngblood before, and he did changes unbelievable. Like, I got chills.
Yeah, he's a solid cat. He's good with the fans, and I take the same approach he does, except he's much bigger than I am as far as commercial success-wise. But he goes out there and he's very loving to his audience, and he's easy to get to, and you could talk to him, and he's accessible. And where most rock stars back in the 60s and 70s and 80s weren't, you hit out and you couldn't get a hold of them, you couldn't talk to them. Right. Nowadays, it's a little bit different. And that's one thing that is pleasantly surprising and charming about Youngblood. Not only does he have a beautiful set of pipes, but he loves his fans. He knows where he comes from.
We're running up on time, but I got to ask you, did you shed a tear or get moist eyes?
Or what's that?
I said, we're running up on time here, but did you shed a tear or come close?
Well, of course, I was, I grew up listening to Black Sabbath. My father would have all those records in the early days. So hearing those songs, of course, brings so much joy and happiness.
Mama, if
a tear was shed, it was because it was Ozzy saying goodbye after all these years. But one thing that us fans all have in common is we get the music, and that's going to be around for our lifetime. So that's very special. And God bless Black Sabbath, God bless Ozzy Osbourne, and God bless all the fans that have supported us through the years.
We're going to end it right there. That was absolutely beautiful. Chip, I thank you for taking the time, as always. Let's do more together. I'm putting together.
Appreciate that, bro. No, it's wonderful seeing your mug. I'm looking forward to getting out there on tour. Anybody wants to follow us, EnuffZ'Nuff.com, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. See the videos. Check out the band. We got over 300 songs on Spotify. We're not lazy. We bring the music every single day. If you like pop, rock, alternative, heavy metal, we got a little bit of everything for you. New singles out right now, by the way. Steve Stevens is playing with us from Billy Idol's band. The song is called Magnificent. Peace.
Perfect, Chip. I thank you for your contributions to the music scene. Always fun to talk to you. Good luck with the tour.
Good luck to you and your family as well, bro. Thank you very much.
Be safe, my friend.
Cheers, my friend. Bye.